Veronica, I'm just admitting people, but do you want to do that? Should I stop?
Either way, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I'd love your help. Thank
Okay.
you.
Tony, are you representing Manzanita today?
Yes, he
I
is.
am, yes.
Okay.
Do we have a quorum yet, Veronica?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We need 2 more. We have 7 of the minimum of 9. Grace let me know she was not feeling well today and would most likely not be able to attend. Xenia just came in. So,
Veronica, you're pretty quiet.
is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I am Karen.
all right, there we go.
Five. Okay. Okay, we have a quorum. We'll verify here in a minute.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 1:35. Veronica, if you could do a roll call, please.
Okay. Please be aware to remind you to unmute yourself. Please let me know that you are here when I call your name. Luz Martinez, Roseanne Ibarra, or anyone from Adventist Health. Lisa Judd. Oh, we can't hear you, Lisa. I know you're here. I see you. Okay, I'm going to mark you as here and we'll work on your audio. Okay. Jackie.
Here.
Tony Marsh.
Here.
Grace Peeler or anyone from McCavan? Paul Davis.
Here.
Thanks. Xenia Levacho. I know you're here, but we can't hear you. You're muted. You're not on the phone. Okay, we know Xenia's here. I'm going to mark her here, and we'll also try to work on her audio. Karen Lovato. Blythe Post.
Here.
Amanda Archer or anyone else from Mendocino County Youth Project? Judy Albert or anyone from Project Sanctuary? Sage Wolf.
Hi.
Hi. Dan McIntyre.
Here.
Noble Wadelick or anyone else from the Ukiah Police Department?
Shannon Riley's here. But I'm not with the police department. Sorry.
Right. So I'm going to mark the police department as not here. Rachel McDavid or anyone from the Ukiah Senior Center? I know she's on maternity leave. So, okay. And Sandra Stolfi.
Here.
I'm going to go back to Lisa. Can we hear you now?
Lisa's having
Nope.
kind of Monday.
Okay, we still can't hear you. And Xenia, can we hear you yet?
Yes, I can. I'm here.
Okay, you're here. Excellent. Okay. We have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Veronica. Okay, is there any public comment? Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. I don't know if there's any public here. Did you get any public
received
comment, Veronica?
No, I received no advance request, and the Zoom access information was provided with the agenda. So members of the public are welcome to join us.
Okay. So we're going to go on to the approval of the minutes from August 16th, 2021 COC board meeting. Then you got a motion to approve those, or if there's any changes that need to be made to them.
I make a motion for us to approve the minutes as are.
Thank you, Blythe. Is there a second for that motion?
I second that, it's Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes after that motion discussion? No. Roll call, Veronica?
When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain if you approve the motion. Lisa Judd. Okay, I'm going to circle back to Lisa. Jackie Williams.
Approve.
Tony, yes, no, or abstain?
Yes.
Paul Davis.
Yes.
Xenia Levacho.
Yes.
Blythe Post.
Yes. Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Sage Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you. Dan McIntyre
Yes.
and Sandra Stolfi.
Yes.
And Lisa, can we hear you yet? I'm going to say that Lisa abstains from this vote so that we can move on. Motion passed.
Thank you, Veronica. We're going to go on to reports and presentations with updates from local jurisdiction. I don't see Karen here, so Megan, do you have an update for the County of Mendocino?
Well, let's see. I guess this is the very informal update about Project Home Key is that I just wanted to remind the board and the jurisdictions that are part of this board that the deadline to apply for Project Home Key 2.0 is in January. It's very unlikely that the county will be applying for a project within any city jurisdiction limits, but we're strongly urging city jurisdictions to apply themselves for a project in Project Home Key. So I think that communication is going to get a little more intentional from the county pretty soon to encourage cities to consider this opportunity. It does appear across the state that most of the applicants for Project Home Key this time around are cities. And I'm really hopeful that a city will consider applying, and that if they do, the county is very willing to step in and support all the programming side of it from the point of occupancy on. So that's my announcement, and you may be hearing more about that in the time to come.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, Shannon?
Can I ask a question about that, Megan?
Sure.
Well, two questions, I guess. I think you answered one of them, but if a city were to participate, they would just be buying the property and then the county would support the project with the programs and the staffing and everything. Is that right?
Yes, that is the, I don't have anything like that in writing yet, but that's the conceptual, that's where the county staff, including myself, have landed conceptually. The county staff, specifically my unit, would be willing and actually happy to step in as soon as occupancy is, an occupancy permit is achieved, or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
And work out through all the programming side with a jurisdiction that's interested in this project. But the purchasing and the remodel part would be, and the ownership actually of the building would be a city jurisdiction if they were to go down that path. But there's a bunch of different models that can be talked about. That's the thought right now. So the Project Home Key this time around, I think it was the same last time, but I guess we were paying a little bit more attention this time. It doesn't have to be a motel or hotel. Any kind of purchase is actually allowed of any kind of structure. If the purchase is for an apartment building that has people in it already, it becomes much more complicated, but that could in theory be allowed. There's bonus money if it's for family housing. I personally in the county am very, very interested in a family focused project. So the demand Project Home Key Live Oak Apartments has well over 400 people on the waiting list, 271 households on the waiting list. The demand is really, really significant. And that's without even really publicizing the last couple months, because we're not able to put anyone new in right now, but the demand is just really enormous.
Megan?
Okay, and then thank you. My other question was, you indicated that the county did not likely have any plans to purchase properties inside the jurisdictions. Is the county considering locations outside in the unincorporated county?
There is interest in Anderson Valley and the old Anderson Valley Inn. I think that is what it's called in Philo. There's a lot of potential problems with that site related to septic. It would be a small site. They're interested in like a family focused project that would probably have a total of 6 units by the time, but there's a bunch of barriers to the septic. So the county is working with the community on that to find out if it's a viable site or not. It's really unclear whether it would be or not. So I think the county would be open to entertaining projects in the county limits, particularly if that area is requesting it, which is what's happening in Anderson Valley right now. I'd say the viability of that is completely unknown right now.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, did you have a question? Or sorry.
I missed the date that you mentioned when you started talking about this. It was January, right? For a deadline?
You know what, it's January, and I can't remember if it's the beginning or end of January. I actually kind of feel like it's the end of January, but there is a special set aside for rural communities that the deadline is January. So there is, what I'm really thinking is that if the jurisdiction's going to get on board with this, they need to do it now, because there's what I'm worried about is people suddenly coming up with an idea or a project like mid-December. That would be hard to pull off. So kind of this is the moment to figure out if this is a moment for a jurisdiction to figure out if they want to go down this path. The county is really happy to share what we've learned and to kind of do some hand holding along the way if jurisdictions want to go down that path.
Thanks, Megan. See any other questions for Megan on that? Did you have anything else, Megan?
Very quick update on Project Roomkey. I know this is kind of a collaborative project, but we have a hard, I keep saying that because I keep saying yes, even when I should be saying no. We have a hard cap on Project Roomkey right now. We're really trying to focus on exiting people out of Project Roomkey to stable housing. It's a very intentional effort that the really awesome work that the 100-day challenge folks kind of launched. We do have a special allocation for people in Project Roomkey to help them secure safe and stable housing. So I'm really hoping that we'll see some good outcomes from that in the next couple months. We do have about probably 60, although I haven't looked at the list recently, 60 households in Project Roomkey still.
Okay, thank you, Megan. We'll move on to the city of Ukiah. Shannon?
Just a couple random things. The city of Ukiah was asked to respond to a grand jury report regarding homelessness. I think the county was as well. And most of the questions were outside of the city of Ukiah's jurisdiction. And if any of you have ever had to respond to a grand jury report, it can be really challenging because the penal code dictates that you can only use certain responses. And sometimes, you know, it's a yes or no question, but the answer is actually blue. So we muddled our way through it. Some of the questions were things like, you know, is the COC website up to date? And it appears to be up to date to us, but, you know, there's a lot of this stuff that just wasn't within our jurisdiction. So that is public information and can be accessed through our last meeting's agenda packet, if anyone's interested. And then randomly, I got an email from HUD on Friday. They got an anonymous complaint from somebody about the city purchasing a motel and putting a bunch of people in it who were barely homeless, and there's still a bunch of people on the street. And something else, the other accusation was that we rented a parcel to a bunch of homeless people and then kicked them out a month later and kept all their money. So I'm responding to that. That's fun. That's all. I have not heard any significant feedback regarding homeless related facilities or anything. So in my world, no news is good news.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
So I'm sorry, I was on the phone and if I missed this, but Shannon, I was wondering if there was any kind of discussion in that, because in my recollection, there was something in regards to showers for homeless families or someone in the county. I thought that was a part of it, but I may be wrong.
You're asking about the grand jury response?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a question related to hygiene, and it basically asked us to confirm whether we believed that hygiene was an important personal value or something. And we agree that it is.
But there was nothing in there, just like in regards to the county creating a space or something for communal showers or hygiene.
There was reference to hygiene stations. I can't remember exactly what they were. Shannon, when you finish answering that, I probably should comment on that as well, though.
Yeah, I think it was something about, we'll collaborate with partners to ensure that hygiene needs are met or something. And so there were no specific recommendations, at least in the city of Ukiah's report. Megan probably has more to add to that.
I just know that that's a huge barrier for families specifically in this community, at varying times for showers. I mean, at building bridges, I know that on an occasion, but with adults there, like supervision with that is very limited. And then also, when kids get to junior high and high school, they have access to the gym shower, but our elementary school kids do not. And so what we're seeing are children that are going without showers for weeks and months, trying to attend school. So we can help them with laundry vouchers for their clothing, but the smell that lingers on some of these kiddos is pretty intense. So I just wanted to put that out there as my own public comment.
Thanks, Blythe.
Blythe, this is Camille. Why don't we talk about that offline, okay?
Okay.
We should be able to solve something as partners, the system itself, the children's system of care. So, okay.
I just, Shannon bringing up the grand jury report reminded me that I probably should have mentioned that as part of the county report. So the county was required to respond to that grand jury report as well. I feel like they did, and I feel like the answers were at the Board of Supervisors a couple of weeks ago. I will note for the chairs in this board that the grand jury was also requesting that the COC respond. Because the COC is not a government agency, they're not required to respond. And frankly, Veronica and I were just dealing with so many things that it's just not been, hadn't been a little bit on the back burner. But I think it's important for the board to know that that request is there. Again, it's not required like it is for the city and the county to respond to certain items, but the request is there. I'll just leave it at that, yeah, for now. And just, sorry, one last thing. Blythe, the reference to the hygiene stations in the grand jury report, I think were much more about bathrooms maybe and like porta potty type things. I don't think it was a mobile shower thing, but I can check. I agree though that some sort of, especially for children, some sort of mobile shower in the middle of a field is probably not what you had in mind. So connecting with Camille makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did you have anything else, Shannon?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to go on to the city of Fort Bragg, Tabitha or Sarah. And I don't see either of them. Paul from City of Point Arena.
Yeah, hi. This is Paul at City of Point Arena. I don't really have much to report, but we are trying to move forward with a safe parking program. But we need assistance with some group that can manage it and with money. So the City Council has pledged some space, which we have to negotiate with the owner. So that's where we're at with that. We do look forward to having some sort of program up and running next year, and kind of hoping that it would be a pilot program for this type of endeavor among the other jurisdictions if they want, finding out what works and what doesn't in our location. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul? No? Okay. Noble, welcome. Want to wrap back around to Noble real quick, see if you had any updates. Shannon gave us a brief update, but I don't know if you had anything from your perspective for the city.
No, I apologize about being late. I had another meeting that ran late, so just trying to do multiple things at one time.
Not a problem. I completely understand that scenario. Is there any other updates from any other jurisdictions? Hearing none, we're going to move on to standing committee reports. We have not met with the strategic planning since we had the last meeting when we talked about updating the strategic plan. I suspect that there'll be another strategic plan meeting probably at the beginning of next month, if not sooner. So I don't know if you have anything else, Veronica, besides that.
I know that Megan and I have explored obtaining a contractor to help us with the facilitation of that update, and we've made some progress. We haven't established a contract yet. I think Megan can speak more to that. She's more informed.
Right, we are close. At the last strategic planning committee meeting, the committee agreed to see if Mari Roden, who helped us write the original report, could be contracted to do a kind of update and interview with everybody. We are in the process of doing that contract. It's almost done. Mari's been out of town, so I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll be providing her with a list of people to do interviews with, and she'll be off and running on updating that strategic plan. So that is moving forward. Thank you, Megan.
Angelica, do you have anything on shelters and solutions?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So we had just general discussion around the likely further exacerbation of the unhoused situation in light of some of the recent lifting of the COVID-19 tenant protection, and obviously because of the end of Project Roomkey. And then we also discussed some more components of the safe parking report, which Paul Anderson sort of discussed too, and in that component will be a pilot program discussion. So we hope to have that. We will have that ready for next month's board meeting, so we can have it properly agendized.
Okay, thank you, Angelica. Any questions for Angelica? Okay, we're gonna move on to Sage, coordinated entry discharge planning.
Hi. Coordinated entry, let's see, we're plugging along with we recently implemented a new screening tool that brings us back to prioritizing people on more than just COVID. So that got implemented about, hey, I'm gonna get this, it's like the middle of August, potentially, or was it the beginning of September? Anyway, so that's been rolling out. And so good to see that our folks on the street with mental illness and with substance use disorder are getting to have more access to our coordinated entry system. We're working right now on our annual training. We're going to be doing a kind of combo reporting of it so that it is viewable to those people who are engaged in coordinated entry. So we do an annual training, the coordinated entry committee, for you, like the service providers who screen people for coordinated entry, and the housing providers who use coordinated entry to fill their housing slots. And so previously we've done in-person trainings. We did it on Zoom last year, and this year we're going to record it so that it's more convenient to send to people who come on in between that annual session. So that should be coming out the first of the year. I think that's about all I have.
Thank you, Sage. Is there any questions for Sage on coordinated entry? Okay, see, now we're going to move on. Veronica, I don't think you have anything on membership because I see a note that says we need to schedule a membership committee meeting.
Yeah, I do need to schedule a membership committee meeting. And I wanted to bring this to the attention of everyone. That committee is very small and doesn't have much representation. So I was hoping that the next meeting we could possibly recruit some more people that wouldn't be part of the committee ongoing, but could help us with the discussion on the COC board seats and the possible expansion of that. I know that the strategic planning committee discussed possibly doing that, but it feels like we could possibly do it through the membership committee. And so Megan and I were talking about that possibility. What do you guys think of having like an extended one-time meeting to talk about that one topic?
We could do that.
Yeah, we could just do a quick ad hoc if you thought, getting everyone focused for a quick discussion would be good.
I don't think we need to do it as an ad hoc since the membership committee meeting is there, but there's some fairly significant decisions about whether or not we want to consider adding jurisdictions as actual board members, whether or not we want to add these two categories that the state auditor wanted us to add, and then whether or not we want to add seats specifically for some demographic groups. So it's a complicated topic that I think really we have to really think through the implications. We struggle to get a quorum right now. So there's these things that are, it would be an important discussion to have, but I don't think, Jackie, we need to do it as an ad hoc. We could just do it as the membership meeting.
And I feel like we didn't really touch on some of these, how we would, if we decided the different jurisdictions needed a representative, how we would do it too. So it is,
right.
It's a fairly detailed discussion that once those suggestions and things get approved, we're going to need to update our bylaws and things. Right?
I think it's a really significant discussion. I agree, Jackie, because the question would be whether we want those seats, how they're appointed, and quite honestly, whether we remove some seats. This has been a board that's been pretty heavy on actual service providers themselves. So, it's very weighty, I think, and it's would be good to really spend some time thinking that through and to fold and not have to keep, kind of fussing about the edges. I'd like to see this board really intentionally think about what does this board want? What should the membership of this board be? And what do we possibly lose in that process?
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, I will set that up and I'll send it to the full COC membership. And I just really hope that people who receive it can really make it a priority for them, because this is really important for us. And that's it for the membership committee.
Thank you. Brian?
Sure. The HMIS and Performance Measurement Committee generally meets last week. Last week, all HMIS lead agency staff were in Atlanta attending a conference, so the committee did not meet. It was postponed until next month. I can give some general updates again on HMIS for the 2022 data standards. HUD's changed a lot of language to be more inclusive and trauma-informed. The biggest change is the way they collect gender data. It's now 5 different options and choose as many as fits the client's identity. There's also significant changes to the way permanent supportive housing with COC funding collects data. There's now client well-being questions that are required to be asked when someone goes into permanent supportive housing, gets an annual update or exits on how they perceive kind of their self-worth, their resiliency, and how they're doing. Gathering that subjective data is a really big change from the standard objective data associated with permanent supportive housing. And then beginning next year, coordinated entry will have to submit an APR to SAGE HMIS the same way ESG and COC funded entities do. Those are the big updates. If anyone wants to know more information on HMIS, feel free to email hometeam@mendocinocounty.org to explore those changes further if you'd like more.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Now we're going to move on to the ad hoc funding review. Ad hoc, Veronica, you want to give an update on the meeting we had last week?
Yeah. So the meetings went really well. The funding ad hoc committee was able to come up with the COC recommendation for the ESG 2021 balance of state NOFA. We received 3 applications, 1 competitive and 2 non-competitive. There's some information on them included in your packet. And later on in the agenda, we have a recommended action to discuss and approve that final recommendation. Does anyone have any questions about the committee's process or anything like that that's not related to the actual outcome of it that we'll discuss in a little bit?
There's no questions for Veronica. We'll go on to the Emergency Solutions Grant and the recommended action.
Okay, so if you turn to page, let me get near the end. Actually, it's the last page of your packet, page 8. You'll see a staff report that contains the information for the applications that we received and the outcome of the rating and ranking. We didn't receive any applications that we could not include in our funding recommendation, so we're not recommending any applications not be funded. RCS and Mendocino Coast Hospitality Center both submitted non-competitive rapid rehousing project applications. Both were for the amount of $65,388. That's exactly half of the non-competitive allocation that the COC has been given by HCD. So they're again splitting, they're willing to split that. RCS's application was for rapid rehousing funding and HMIS support. Hospitality centers was for rapid rehousing, a tiny bit of homeless prevention that was allowable up to 10% of your application, as well as HMIS site support, site level support. We received 1 competitive application from River Community Services. The total amount was for $200,000, which is the maximum amount allowable Minimum amount was 75,000. You can disregard that for the non-competitive amount. They know it's HCD, it's only for the competitive amounts. RCS's application was to fund emergency shelter, street outreach, and HMIS site level support. And the committee is recommending that all applications be submitted for funding as requested. Any questions, discussion?
Any questions for Veronica on that report? If there's no questions, I need a motion to approve the amended action or proposed action.
I move to approve the proposed action.
I
Is there a
second that.
Thank you, Blythe. Thank you, Zinnia. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Veronica.
Okay, I want to remind the two applicants that they need to abstain from this vote. So please, when I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Lisa Judd, can we hear you yet?
I don't even see her anymore.
I don't see her on my screen anymore, Veronica.
Okay, so I'm going to skip her. Noble's here, so we're okay. We got one. Okay, so Lisa is not here. Jackie. Yes, nor abstain. Yes. Tony Marsh.
Approve.
Paul Davis.
Abstain. Right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Zenya.
Yes.
Thank you. Blythe.
Yes. Yes.
I got you. Thank you. Sage.
Abstain, but can I make a comment after we're all done?
Yeah. Dan.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
And Sandra.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Veronica. Sage.
Thank you. I just want to say that something was, I don't know what was different about this year's ESG, this process, but it was really the way that the ad hoc funding committee set up their scoring tool was really clear. And then I requested to get a copy of our score sheet so we could know where we could improve and like kind of what things to look at in the future. And it was super helpful. That hasn't been so clear in previous years. And so I just want to really thank the folks, Veronica and the ad hoc funding committee, for the work that you put in to making this process really smooth. And it just seemed structured in a way that really made sense and made it easy and transparent feeling. So like we could really understand, like, okay, so like if we hadn't been recommended for funding or for moving forward, then like we'd really have some clear parameters to understand why. So just thank you for doing that work.
No problem, Sage. It's when Brian and the whole committee really want to focus on the fact that, if we get to a spot where we have multiple ESG things, it's not a subjective opinion of who gets funded. It's more, numerical based or statistics based on certain things. So you know where the room for the improvement is, because otherwise it becomes too subjective, and then that's questionable for not being correct. All right. So that moving on to the next one, the HUD Continuum Care, the COC program, Veronica.
So as you guys know, in addition to the ESG NOFA, we also have the 2021 CDC Program NOFO that is currently open. So if I want to make sure that anyone who is here or anybody interested knows that funding is available. We anticipate, we have 2 renewal projects that we anticipate receiving applications for, which are both with CDC. one with the tenant-based rental assistance and one for the coordinated entry SSO project. There's also a funding available for COC bonus projects, which the NOFO describes exactly the project types that are eligible, but off the top of my head, I know that I'm pretty sure the ones are rapid rehousing, joint rapid rehousing and transitional housing projects, which is a little different. And then HMIS dedicated projects for the COC lead, the COC HMIS lead entity, excuse me. So those are the ones that I'm aware of. There may be one or two that I'm missing off the top of my head. But I've put a link in the agenda to the website that has the NOFO and all of the information. And then additionally, they're also offering a DV bonus project. I want to be clear that victim service providers are welcome to apply, but the DV bonus isn't exclusive to victim service providers. A non-victim service provider, nonprofit, or a unit of local government could apply for funding as long as they understand they have to serve those who are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, and they have to provide all those same levels of protection, of information, and safety. So if there were projects interested in doing that, that's a possibility. I know Brian knows a little bit more about that, and he has his hand up.
Thanks, Veronica. Go ahead, Brian.
Just to be clear, receiving these funds doesn't designate you as a victim service provider. You still use HMIS for a COC DV bonus. So while you definitely want to be careful and mindful of the information in your serving people fleeing domestic violence, it doesn't require you to use a comparable database like a victim service provider does, because their funding sources require them to not use HMIS. For the DV bonus, you can use HMIS as long as your agency isn't a victim service provider.
Thanks, Brian. So in addition to those funding possibilities, one thing I want to make sure that the COC board is aware of is that this board does have the authority to reallocate renewal funds if they so wished. So if the board wanted to say, there's this renewal project and we don't think it's performing to the way that we want it to, so we want to reallocate those funds from this project type to this other project type, knowing that it would be a new application and it would have to compete with the rest of all the other COCs in Tier 2 for funding. So it would be in Tier 2, but it could be potential using it in a different way. The risk that we run with that is if we reallocate the funds to a new project type and don't get funded, our community loses that money forever. So I wanted to bring it as a possibility. I'm not recommending it, but it's a possible action item that the board could take to reallocate the renewal project funding. And Lisa's not here, so I would say I would feel remiss not speaking up for her. And I know that they do have plans for both of those renewal projects. They've hired staff recently and really do have some longevity plans for that funding.
So just as a reminder to the board, the two existing projects that would be renewed are the rental assistance, like over $1 million that they use for their standard COC HUD vouchers, right, Veronica?
$1.7 million.
And then the second one is the supportive services only project that has been meant to be used to support coordinated entry work. And that's about 90,000.
Thank you. I don't think that it's worth the risk.
Can I ask a question though?
Go ahead. Yeah, Sage, you're more than welcome to ask a question.
So Veronica, with the renewal projects, if we're not, it's so for reallocating, you would, if there was interest in reallocating the funds, but not to a different project time, to the same project type, but possibly a different organization or operator to do a piece. Is that also a reallocation thing that goes back into the competitive pool, or how would that work?
I'm gonna honestly say I don't know. Because it's a renewal project, having it be a new organization, I don't know if that would be continue to be a renewal or if it would be a new application. And I don't know. It's really complicated and really technical. And HUD just recently had a webinar, and it didn't even touch on tier 1s or 2 yet. So I don't know.
Okay. I was just curious of how it worked with reallocation to different project type versus reallocation to a different provider.
Right.
They're the same.
I would say that if there is a provider interested in providing any kind of project through the COC program funds, that they should submit an application. You should always submit an application if you're interested. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Veronica. Any other questions on the program?
And it's Jackie. I just want to say, I think it's really unusual, as Veronica pointed out. And the only, and it's hearsay, so who knows if this is true, that remember we've had some catastrophes in Northern California with fires and loss of facilities. And so I think there was the acknowledgement at the state that there, if you have a program in 2 different buildings, but you lost one building, we need to be agile and be able to reallocate or and in those situations. So I just think it's an attempt to help COCs be a little bit more agile and astute. Are they putting the money where they best can? And so, I don't think it's threatening as much as it is helping us should something like that occur.
Thanks, Jackie. So if there's no other discussion, do you need us on item 3? It says no action from the board. Is there any updates on any other funding sources, Veronica?
I'm working on the final HEAP report. It's a day or 2 late, but I'll have it done by the end of the day today. Oh, HAP. I need to update the COC that the County of Mendocino has agreed to submit a joint application with Mendocino County COC for HAP round 3. So I only have to do 1 application and manage 1 budget, and the COC and the county will need to work out how it's going to agree on how that funding will be used.
So that's going to be a fun adventure for the COC and the county. And I just want to kind of get us ready for that and point out that Veronica and I will try to continue to be the neutral facilitator on this. So I'm working really hard to make sure that the county counterpart is not Veronica and I.
I'm sure it'll work out.
I'm trying.
I'm sure it'll work out fine, Megan.
I can kind of hear the sarcasm there, Dan, but we'll
No,
see.
I'm not being sarcastic.
Oh, you're not? Okay. So I am looking forward to the process. It's where we need to be, but it'll be an important growth point for both the COC and the county.
No, I'm not being sarcastic. I've had to negotiate with the county a ton, and I'm not being sarcastic on this.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think every time we go, what did you call it, a challenge or an opportunity? Every time we do this, both sides get better informed of what's really happening and how it really happens. So, there's a benefit.
I'm not all the way gray yet, so I got some room to go. Okay, we're going to go on to projects then. Jackie or Christy, do you want to give an update on 100-day challenge?
Christy, can I impose on you for that?
Yeah, no problem. I was actually not able to attend last week's meeting because I was at the MCHSCoC conference in Atlanta. However, we did have our What's Next workshop as like the end culminating meeting for the 100-day challenge on October 6th. And at that meeting, we had decided as a team to continue meeting every Tuesday from 9 to 10:30. And we are calling ourselves Housing Mendo now. And we're going to continue to meet as long as we need to get the population that we are working with housed, specifically PRK guests, and do everything we can to help them utilize the exit funds that are being provided and just stay in contact with one another. This has also become kind of like a platform for information sharing and agencies sharing information learned and challenges that they're having and just kind of talking each week. So we're using it in a lot of ways to brainstorm and in a lot of ways to help each other out. So if you weren't able to attend during the 100-day challenge, know that it is ongoing. And if you're interested in attending those meetings, and even if you just want to pop into one to meet with the team, go ahead and give me a shout out at my email and or at home team at MendocinoCounty.org, and I can connect you to those meetings with an invite.
Thank you, Christy. Is there any questions for Christy on that? Okay, if not, we're going to go on. Is there any announcements? Anybody have any announcements that we didn't talk about during the board meeting?
Hey, Dan.
Mhm.
I pulled up the COC 2021 program NOFA, and I have more information on the question Sage asked.
Go ahead.
It looks like yes. So tier 1 is consistent of new project applications created through reallocation or COC bonus and renewal applications. Tier 2 would be new project applications created through reallocation or COC. It's the same thing. So basically anything that's over our dollar figure is going to go into tier 2. And I don't know what that dollar figure is because they give us like 374,000, but because of our renewal project, it's over 1.7 million. So it's hard to tell. So once we get into the applications, we'll be able to know a little bit more, but I think it's based upon the funding amount, not based upon whether they're a new or renewal application. Does that make sense?
About as clear as mud, but yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I didn't totally follow it, but maybe you can communicate with Sage afterwards, or maybe email.
Yeah.
Them. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica. Okay, well, if there's no other announcements, then our next COC board meeting is going to be November 15th. It seems like it's just right around the corner, which it is. So November 15th at 1:30 on Zoom. At some point in 2022, we may get back to being in person.
I did want to just have the board think about that a little bit. Through a different channel in my life, I've become aware of what the Brown Act rules are and for meeting in public. And I do think we're going to need to address that issue, hopefully in a different way than I've had to address it. But we should have that on our agenda soon. I'm making cryptic comments because we had a slightly interesting school board meeting where we welcomed public comment in person for the first time last week. So the public has not had an opportunity to be in person with people in a long time. So any venue that is available becomes more interesting. So at some point we should think about that as a board.
And maybe we can do something that's somewhat hybrid. I don't know if that's
possible. I thought
so. The city every 30 days they do an attestation or something like that, acknowledging the need to continue virtual meetings. And I know that because it's actually coming up again, I think, this meeting. So that may be something that, that's what the city's doing as part of the Brown Act rules.
I think that I haven't paid a lot of attention to that from the COC standpoint, but I think Chief Weidelek is correct. It's possible we are supposed to be saying something about how it's unsafe for us to meet in person, but I'm not totally sure. It's something Veronica and I should look, or somebody should tell us what to do. Maybe
Yeah,
we ask county
we'll-
council.
We'll talk about Megan, and then I know we did some in the early part in the conference room there at Health and Human Services as well.
Yeah, and I do agree that because this is a countywide group, having the ability to participate by Zoom for the board members is actually helpful. So I don't know how to balance that. We really should be giving the public an opportunity to show up in person when we're supposed to. But I do think that a hybrid, if we can figure out how to do that well, would be worth our while.
Okay. We might have to draw in county IT stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I could pull it off and have it at the Dixer room. But I want to remind us that if a board member doesn't attend in person, they have to publicly notice 72 hours in advance at the location they're going to be at, and it has to be open to the public.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just sit in your office and do your meeting, unless nobody's interested in attending, but you still have to publicly notice it per the Brown Act.
Yeah, and that's why we went full virtual after the first one. But we'll talk about it.
We're probably in, well, I'm not going to say anymore. Well, I guess we should figure it out.
We do. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you.